The Woodland and Scrub case study in Module 5. In this presentation, we explore the woodland and scrub management encouraged under the Acres hybrid results-based approach. One of the main determinants of the nature value of woodland and scrub is the diversity in vegetation composition and structure. In the highest quality temperate woodlands, there is a distinct vertical structure evident as well as spatial variation in tree species reflective of underlying geology, soils, hydrology and topography. 4 distinct layers can be recognized. The tree canopy is generally greater than 5 meters, 4 meters in wet areas. The understory of shrubs, including climbers, is less than 5 meters, and then there is a field or herb layer of herbaceous plants less than 1 meter is made up of herbs and plants without woody stems and short woody plants such as brambles. And then we also have a ground or moss layer of mosses and liverworts. These are together called bryophytes, together with lichens and algae. In the diagram on the right, we see a typical vertical structure of a temperate deciduous woodland with the field layer dominated by bilberry and heather and herbs such as wood sorrel, bluebells, the canopy dominated by oak with an understory of hazel and birch. Climbers include honeysuckle and ivy. In most parts of Ireland, there would be abundant epiphytes of ferns and mosses growing on the trees and other woody vegetation with rich diversity of lichens also. Missing layers are often due to absence of light penetrating through a dense layer of shrubs, for example. These would be mostly invasive species that grow at this profusion, such as cherry laurel or rhododendron, or also lack of layers can be driven by forest management, where the density of planting is used to favour growth form of species targeted for timber production, shading out light from the understory. Also, excessive browsing or grazing is also a factor in some semi-natural woodlands and scrub areas across the country. The vegetation layers create a diverse range of ecological niches for other species. Each layer provides space for suitably adapted species from invertebrates to vertebrates such as birds and mammals. And in the illustration, we see the distribution of bird species. This illustrates how they use different areas to maximize the use of the woodland and minimize competition between species. The management of native woodland in Ireland is covered in detail by John Cross and Kevin Collins in this publication, which is available online by clicking the link in purple on the slide. There has been considerable improvement in management guidelines and resources available for native woodland management over the last decade or so, driven in particular by the availability of native woodland scheme grants. However, once native woodland are established, there is little available monetary supports or payments for ecosystem services they provide. The Acres Woodland Scorecard, where woodland occurs within a larger agricultural parcel, recognises for the first time their value for nature, carbon and water services. Most of Ireland's woodlands are in poor conservation status. The main issues affecting their condition are non-native invasive species, as we can see here on the right, inappropriate grazing, poor woodland structure and lack of natural regeneration. In John Cross and Kevin Collins' book, they outline some of the general woodland management guidelines that are required to maintain semi-natural woodlands in Ireland. It is essential that ancient and long-established woodlands in particular, which cover less than 1% of the country, are conserved. In terms of native woodlands, it is essential to ensure a diverse structure, maintain typical and rare species, encourage natural regeneration and appropriate grazing regimes compatible with maintaining the structure and species diversity. Requirements for grazing or browsing control are site-specific and are best managed through focusing on the desired results, as encouraged through the results-based payment system. Many issues in relation to grazing include deer and sheep and are related to deer grazing, browsing, sheep and feral goat grazing, or outwintering by cattle. Invasive species control is a particular need in Irish woodlands, with many areas showing signs of various levels of infestation, from rhododendron, cherry laurel and snowberry in some areas. It is also important in native woodlands to retain dead and decaying wood in terms of both carbon dynamics and diversity of invertebrate species and associated food webs. So the main management drivers that determine how a woodland and scrub area score are summarised in this slide. The scrub and woodland scorecard is used where woodland or scrub is predominant, generally covering greater than 50% of the parcel. In many cases, the scorecard will be assigned by the CP teams in their digitising of their respective areas. And scores are gained as a result of the diversity of native species and structure. The main management that drives this diversity of native species would include things like removal or control of non-native species, control of excessive grazing and browsing to allow natural regeneration, and then encouraging, possibly on a site-by-site basis where it's required, like grazing in mid to late summer or autumn, and in dry areas, minimum levels of winter grazing can be suitable. But often the period of grazing is followed by extended non-grazing periods, and this encourages tree regeneration through gap creation for germination. In terms of managing the hydrology, the main issue here is to reduce free-flowing artificial drainage and do not install drains through scrub or woodland. So the points are gained through Section A, ecological integrity, but points can easily be lost if any of these damaging activities in Section B or interference with the natural hydrological regime within a woodland or bordering a woodland in terms of associated water bodies are evident at a site. So you should reduce damaging activities, particularly those adjacent to water bodies. Consider temporary fencing off damaged areas to allow recovery where damage resulted from excessive grazing or browsing or supplementary feeding. And control of non-native invasive species, again emphasised here in section C4, and management options vary for the differing species. I just want to finish our notes on woodland and scrub with a key question in the dynamics of woodland and pasture ecosystems. Scrub, to control or not to control? This is mainly determined by the age of the scrub and the dynamics with and the value of the habitat it is encroaching on. We should encourage scrubland along the edge of existing semi-natural woodland because that's the first expansion of the semi-natural woodland into other areas. We should retain mature scrub where it is present in an area. It's a valuable habitat in its own right. We should encourage scrubland along the edge of plantation forestry, where many of it occurs after establishment of the forest, and particularly in the first decade or so after establishment. However, we should control encroaching scrub on semi-natural grasslands and peatland areas. Thank you.